Headspace cost of living, take one.
Hi, I'm Hamish. I use he, him pronouns and I'm 21.
Hi, my name's David. I go by he, him pronouns and I'm 24.
We know that the rising cost of living is really tough on young people right now. Whether it's housing security, your study and career goals, your mental health, or your relationships with your family and friends. The cost of living can have a lot of different impacts on young people's lives.
Today we'll be talking to a Headspace mental health professional and also a work and study specialist in regards to the rising cost of living and the things that might help if you're needing some support. Let's get into it.
So David, in your opinion, what are the main stresses or sort of difficulties that young people are facing with the rising cost of living?
I think there is numerous. Socialising now has to cost money.
It does. Everything is expensive.
And that means that you got to eliminate some stuff. For example, recreational activities, your sport activities, you got to pay money for that. I actually have eliminated some of those because cost of living has just gone too expensive.
Yeah, I feel you.
You see that houses are getting so expensive, but sometimes family members or parents still say, you got to save up for getting a house, and that can put over a lot of stress because the amount of cost to get a house or property is just skyrocketed, and it's just actually really hard. How has the rising cost of living impacted you?
I think one of the biggest stresses I sort of find with the rising cost of living is just that sort of constant cloud of worry that you have over your head, whether you're sitting there lying home in bed or if you're at uni, if you're at work, you're just constantly thinking, how do I, cover my basic needs? How do I pay rent? How do I afford my food? But it's not even just necessarily that. It can be when things do go awry, when things don't go to plan, when that budget is overextended.
Unpredictable.
Yeah, the unpredictable nature of things. Like say, breaking a laptop, I need that for my studies. What do? I don't really have an option to sort of bail me out. So it can be one of those things where you're just really constantly stressed out.
Hi, my name's Zoe. My pronouns are she and her. My role at Headspace National is Clinical Coordinator of Vocational Services. My professional background is a social worker and I've mostly worked in youth mental health.
My name's Sam and my pronouns are she, her. I am a work and study specialist with the Work and Study online program. And before that, I actually worked in banking for a very long time. I worked in financial services for 5 years and I've done a little bit of employment services here and there as well.
When young people are feeling financially stuck, do you have any advice when they can support their mental health?
Money worries are really stressful. And I think that, when you're feeling down or stressed or worried about money, it's really easy to think, well, I won't go spend time with my friends or I won't go and do that fun activity. You make your world a little bit smaller when you're really stressed and upset and worried. So my advice is to just really consciously maintain good self-care, a good routine where you're doing things that are important to you that make you feel good. Yes, that might mean trying to rejuggle or reshift things so that they're not expensive activities. But I think it's really important that when you do continue to prioritize self-care, I think that the last thing that you want to do when you're feeling stressed or really worried about money is avoid doing anything fun, because that's going to contribute to feeling worse and impact negatively on your mental health and well-being. I think a really practical tip is actually when you're looking at your week schedule, and it might be, a couple of shifts of work, some study time and some other things, to actually factor in some stuff that's fun and good and often free or low cost. I think, thinking about what day and what week and when that fits in and having that as part of your regular routine is really important. It might be as simple as taking a walk, or it might be as simple as going to a nice parkland, or, going and seeing a movie on a cheap Tuesday, but something that's kind of for you, and maintaining that in the time of stress is really important.
So do you have any advice for young people that feel like the cost of living is sort of affecting their progression, whether that's career-wise or other?
Yeah, I think all of us kind of go through that future-focused stress at some stage in our lives. And I think my biggest piece of advice is not to say that you shouldn't think about those sort of things, because it's definitely important to have a plan, but try and live in the here and now and think about what's coming up today, tomorrow, next week, and just really slowly chip away at your goals. Set some short-term goals and some long-term goals. Again, do some research and know what you need to do to take those steps to achieve that goal, and just chip away at them really slowly. You will get there eventually. I know it may not feel like that at the time.
I think it's really important that people find opportunities to share their worries with other people and talk about it with trusted family and friends. I think it's also important that we recognize that this is having serious impacts on stress levels and on our mental health, and that you reach out to formal support services to talk about it if you're feeling overwhelmed or that it's impacting on lots of areas of your personal life.
A lot of the time, like banks or financial institutions will have like a financial hardship department, for example. The National Debt Hotline, for example, will also help you out. They've got free financial counsellors that you can chat to. That's literally what they're there for. It's their job to help people who need a little bit of help with their financial situation. So although it may sort of feel a bit uncomfortable doing that initially, I think you'll really thank yourself when you do ask for that support and they give you something that can really help. Sometimes you just need a little bit of a nudge to get you out of that situation.
How do you sort of perhaps encourage someone that you know or potentially yourself to sort of actually get up and go looking? Because sometimes it can just feel like it's one extra thing that you're adding to the table.
Yeah, it might be good to ask someone to help you, find someone or go to that appointment with you, for example. Maybe a family member is happy to start the process for you by making a few calls or giving you some recommendations. So I guess to answer your question is to, again, it's another version of reaching out to someone, but someone that you know and you're comfortable with.
Yeah, a slightly easier step.
Do you know how young people can access free or more affordable mental health services?
If there is a GP that's accessible for you, a really good first point of call is going to your doctor and asking for free or low cost options. What they will do then is give you a mental health care plan. And when they give you the mental health care plan, you're then looking for private counsellors and practitioners that don't have a gap fee. So you absolutely can call the services that your GP refers you to and ask if they charge a gap fee. You may also be able to actually negotiate whether that gap fee can be waived if you are a low income earner or if you have a healthcare card. The other options for low and free cost mental health care is you can contact headspace for free online or phone support. There is a wealth of fantastic online services. So that can actually range from talking to a qualified counsellor or mental health professional and having regular online appointments with someone to a lot of self-directed online programs as well. So there's quite a variety of online programs. The other option as well is if you are studying, if you're at TAFE University, you'll have student services that provides free counselling. Sometimes that's short term or maybe a one-off, but you've got that option. And if you're employed, you may have an employment assistance program.
I don't know too much about the GP, so it's really great you told me about. But I do know a bit about, because I've tried some of the online mental health services. You've got headspace, which they are online counselling that you can do, I think, from 9 a.m. to 1 a.m. There can be stigma talking about money with friends and family.
There are so many different ways that individuals spend money or save money. And those differences can be in families, within friendship groups. And money can be a really sensitive and individual kind of concept, which means that money and talking about money can then be really sensitive. Have you found that?
I think it is hard. And just because the fact that I spend and save money different, and other friends and family save money different as well, there's going to be that conflict of interest difference there.
I think because it is sensitive that a lot of the time we just avoid the money conversation and then we actually have a bit of conflict with people or things come to a head and it's actually been brewing for quite some time. So my advice is actually to try to find a space and to carve out some time to really talk honestly and openly about money. And so with any difficult kind of challenging situation that could create a bit of tension or conflict, I think it's really useful to really be prepared and think, well, what are my key points or what do I want to talk about here? And then thinking about asking someone for permission. So I really think we need to sit down and talk about some money things. Could we do this at this time on this day to kind of choose a time and a place, but also help the other person feel prepared as well to try to think about, you know, what's important to you, what your values are, where you see saving and spending, what your priorities are and what's important, and actually openly talking about that with someone else, and then giving them space to hear what their priorities are for spending and saving. And that is really an opportunity then to maybe carve out where there's common ground, but also where there's possible conflict, and then being open and honest about, well, this is an area that's really different for us. What's that going to look like?
Everyone has at some stage gone through some sort of financial stress, whether they're going through it now or they have in the past. They do understand, and people won't always talk about it. But just keep that in mind, when, especially with family, for example, like family may look like they've got everything sorted. They've got heaps of disposable income, but we don't actually know what they've gone through to get that disposable income. So they could have struggled for a long time, and they might have some really good tips that you could utilize as well to help get yourself back on track.
How do you communicate the financial cans and can'ts with friends in like a conversation?
Sometimes explaining, what our financial barriers are or constraints are is a really useful way to avoid awkward moments in the future. Like if you say to someone, hey, I'm in a bit of a tight budget because I'm saving for this or this is happening in my life, then you can say, so I just want to have cheap eats for the next few weeks. That's much better than going to a restaurant and then being dealt with a hefty bill at the end. So you don't have to give all of your financial information to friends, but sharing a little bit about, hey, I'm on a tight budget, or I just sort of want to be a little bit more careful with my money at the moment, can be a really good way to just kind of avoid those awkward moments in the future.
I think there's a lot of ways that you can actually have fun with your friends on the cheap as well. So a big one for me is like to say heading out to the Botanic Gardens. That was something that I did not long ago with a friend of mine, as we just sort of grabbed a couple drinks and just sort of get out in nature, but it didn't really cost us anything. Other than that, there are sort of other things you can do. I find that often having someone over is a lot better. So sometimes the movies is a tempting option, but if you have a Netflix subscription or a binge subscription or whatever it may be, have them over, grab some popcorn, chuck it in the microwave and enjoy yourself that way.
Have a games night.
Yeah.
Like that's so old school, but it's so fun getting all those board games out. Go to your parents' house and raid their cupboard and get all their board games and come home and just have a really cool games night. Cook something together, like get a barbecue or something, and just like doing it together as well kind of adds to that friendship side of things, that you're socializing and doing things together, but you don't have to go spend hundreds of dollars to do that.
So we've had a really good conversation here today. What are your top 3 tips for taking charge of your finances?
I think the first one is really easy, is budgeting. So budget. Even if you don't stick to the budget, just taking some time to map out what your expenses are, what your income is, have a really good understanding of what's coming in and out. Best case scenario, you're going to know what's coming out and when, and you're less likely to have any of those unexpected costs that pop up. Of course, there's still things that come up without you knowing that they're coming, but having a budget helps you be a little bit more prepared. My second tip would probably be to be as informed as you possibly can. Again, I realize it can probably be a little bit boring to do all this research, but it pays off, especially when you're talking about your money and your finances. So before you start exploring like credit cards or even Afterpay, like just make sure you really understand what you're getting into and what the payments will look like. Is there any interest or anything like that? And I guess my third one would be seek support. Again, we've talked about it a lot, but it's so important to do that. Or, just seek support from the financial hardship departments at your bank or whatever it might be. But talk to your family and friends or mental health professional, whoever it is, about those stresses as well. Just in general, seek some support.
So I think the big question at the end of the day is, how do I save money? How do I pay all my bills? And how do I ultimately live my life?
Again, it comes down to budgeting. But I guess now's a good opportunity to sort of break that down a little bit as well. So I think, if you can look at all of your expenses and try and keep those mandatory expenses, so like your rent and your food, your electricity, all that sort of stuff, if you try and spend at least 60% of your income, no more than that, if you dedicate 60% of your income to mandatory bills, you're left with about 40% there. 15% of that put away for savings. You never know when you might need it. You don't have to be saving for something, but if you need to take some time off work because you're sick or anything else unexpected, it's always good to have some money there for that as well. And then you're left with a good 25% to just live your life a little bit. So I guess the key to that really is to not only budget your bills, but budget your fun and your entertainment as well, and try and stick to that budget as much as you can.
And Zoe, a question for you. What's your tips for setting yourself up for success?
Talk about your worries, to reach out to people, ask for advice, ask for help when needed, ask what other people have done when they were faced with similar situations. Talking about your worries can make a huge difference to how you're feeling and can sometimes provide you with another way to look at a problem or some solutions that you hadn't thought about. Also seek support from formal services. So for us at the moment around the cost of living, that includes talking about your stress and that feeling of overwhelm with mental health professionals or counsellors, reaching out to career counselling to talk about your work and study options and decision making, And also to reach out for financial assistance if needed, financial relief, or budgeting support from financial counsellors if you need. I think reaching out to all three of those services at different times is really important at the moment.
This is the two-part series.
Check out part 2 as we continue the conversation